Hi everybody and welcome to Observing with Webb for June of 2016. June's looking like a good month to get out there and see three of our planetary gems. You've got Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn. They're in good spots in their orbits, which make them big and easy to see. So get out your binoculars and telescopes and let's make it a planet hunting month. So let me go through the whole month. Let me talk about the planets first in general. Then I'll move on to the events, and then I'll show you some constellations in the video as well. So there's not much else going on in June, but three good planets and three good times to see those planets. So let me go to a pretty much an average day. Let's go to the June 15th, and as we take a look at June 15th, at sunset, it's about 8:37. Let me go a little bit further. Let me go to like 10 o'clock, because that's when it's definitely dark enough. What you'll be able to see is Jupiter out there in the west out there. Jupiter's nice to see around sunset. It'll be very bright. It'll be below Leo the Lion, as you can see there. And, excuse me, it's not going to be up for all that long. In fact, if I fast forward to when it sets, it looks like it's about 12:30 that it's going to set. Now, what that means is you only have about 2.5, 3 hours to actually observe it. And that means that next month it's going to be even less. And by September, you're not going to be able to see it at all. So if you want to get some good observations of Jupiter in, now is the time to do it. So check that out. That's really the only planet you can see right at sunset. Let me go back to sunset. As you can see, though, you can start seeing throughout the night. You can see Mars and Saturn. Now, at the beginning of the month, Mars and Saturn are not quite up at sunset. But if you go to about 10 o'clock, again, you can see. Excuse me, you can see Saturn and Mars off in the southeast. Okay. What was I going to say? Yeah, so look southeast after sunset, and I would suggest bringing a sky map of Scorpius and Libra. The reason being that the planets are probably not in that sky map, so if you're looking at something and it's not in the sky map, then you're looking at the planet. But anyway, Mars has sort of separated itself out from Scorpius, and it's moved into Libra. Now Mars is going to be the brightish reddish light above and to the right of Scorpius over here. Let me go back to June 15th. There you go. It's moved a little bit further, and Saturn's going to be over here to the left and above Antares, which is also red. So if you see two very red things, Mars is the one off to the right. So what's going to happen, let me zoom out, is what you'll see is that they'll sort of move toward the south. They'll be low in the sky relatively. And then by about 3 in the morning is when Mars is going to set, and Saturn is going to be about 1 hour behind it. Okay? Oh, note, Saturn reaches opposition this month. Mars did last month, and that kind of makes sense since Saturn's over here. Saturn would be about a month later. That means it's going to be up in the sky almost the entire night. It's also going to be as big as it's going to get in your telescope, although Saturn doesn't change its size nearly as much as Mars does because of the way our orbits are set up. So, oh, and by the way, if you do look at Saturn, let me zoom in there, you should be able to see some really nice rings. Okay. Tilted toward us or away from us, depending on how you look at it. But very, very nice rings here. And yeah, so give it a shot. You should also be able to see, I believe, Titan over here. That's a pretty good easy moon to find as well. But anyway, so if you track Saturn and Mars, okay, and you track them all the way into the morning, you will notice that if you look in the east in the morning, you might just be able to find Mercury over there in the east. Now, it's not going to be easy to find. It's only about 7 degrees above the northeastern horizon, and well, it's just not that high above. However, if you definitely want to see it and want to know where it is, I would say look on June 3rd. It's not as easy to find Mercury in general, but you got the moon there. That'll help you out. So if you can find that nice, very, very thin crescent moon, even with your binoculars, Mercury is going to be up and to the left. So it just makes a really good guidepost to see it, even though Mercury is going to be brighter and bigger in the middle of the month. You might have noticed that I left out Venus. That's because it is behind the sun, so we can't see it. And those are the planets. So if we go backwards, in the morning you should be able to see Mercury. Move that to the 15th. Okay, Mercury over in the northeast. But then if we move back in time, Saturn and Mars you'll be able to see pretty much throughout the entire night, and Jupiter for about the first 2 hours of night. And I'll be off in the west. All right, so, and again, Jupiter's always good to see. It's always big. Saturn's always good to see. It's always pretty big. Mars is good now because it just reached opposition. Although the earlier in the month, the better, because we lap it pretty quickly in our orbit, so it shrinks pretty quickly. But anyway, let's talk about some of the events. If we go back to June 2nd, June 2nd and 3rd is when Saturn reaches opposition. Like I said, it's as big as it's going to be, and it's in the sky for almost the entire night. And then on the 3rd, like I said before, on June 3rd, if you look in the morning before sunrise, you will be able to see Mercury and the moon over here in the east. Okay, and because that moon is very, very thin, the next day, if we look in the same spot, it's not going to be there anymore because it's a new moon. So on June 4th, we have the new moon. That means the darkest skies are in the beginning of the month. And then, well, the moon takes its turn as being a sunset object. So if we look around sunset in the west, and not on June 4th because that's the new moon, but on the 6th, about 2 days after the new moon, that's when you can actually start seeing a very, very thin crescent moon in the sky. Very hard to see. Binoculars will help. And then what you'll notice is that for every day from now and moving on, you'll see that it gets thicker and thicker and bigger and brighter and brighter. And oh, hey, look at that. June 11th, the moon and Jupiter are going to be about, what did I say? I think 7 degrees apart. Excuse me. No, sorry, about 4 degrees apart. Okay. And that's going to be in the southwest after sunset, and they're going to set in the west around, let me fast forward the hours, they're going to set around 12:30 p.m. Yeah, so, but you notice if you look at the moon here, it's not quite first quarter. And what you'll notice is that the next day, whoops, that really zoomed in. The next day, on June 12th, it's definitely first quarter. And that's when the first quarter moon happens. With the first quarter moon, the right half of it is going to be lit up, and you're going to be able to see it from sunset, even before sunset, all the way to about midnight, maybe 1 a.m. And then, every night, what you notice, let me go to about 10 o'clock. That's a good time to look. If you look at the moon, you'll notice that it keeps getting thicker and thicker, and it starts moving over, okay, towards Saturn and Mars. And so what I have written down is from the 16th to the 19th, we have a close encounter between Mars, Saturn, and the moon. And so let me zoom in a little bit here. Let me go to the 16th. Let's start right about there, okay? So you notice we have the south over here, we've got southeast over here, and we've got the moon, Mars, and Saturn. And so they're making this triangle on the night of the 16th. Now it's pretty low in the sky, but it should be pretty easy to find, especially since the moon is so big and bright. Then on the next night, the moon will have moved about 10 degrees to the left, and that will be pretty much between Mars and Saturn, although a little bit above, technically. And then the next night, it's going to be pretty close to Saturn. In fact, I believe, excuse me, Let me see if I can do this. It will be about 3 degrees above and to the left of Saturn. And then the next night, on the 19th, you can see them sort of all in a line. Mars, Saturn, and then the moon. Then on the 20th, the very next night, we have the full moon rising in the east around sunset and setting in the west around sunrise. And that's when it's visible all night. Also on the 20th is the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. And there are a lot of explanations out there for that, but pretty much longest day for northern hemisphere. And then if you keep track of the moon, which I'll show you, and let's say we go about midnight, what you'll start to notice is that the moon will start getting a little bit thinner and it'll be lower in the sky at the same time of night. It's turning into its gibbous phase. Then you'll have to look later at night, let's say 3 a.m. And if you look night after night, it gets thinner and thinner until the 27th is when we have the third quarter moon or last quarter moon. And let me rewind. That rises at about 1 a.m. Excuse me. Rises at about 1 a.m. and then it'll actually be visible into the morning, even into the dawn hours. And that's really about it for events for the month. Not much going on, but I'd say get out between the 16th and the 19th and check out the Moon, Mars, and Saturn. So let me talk about some constellations real quick. I think one of the things that most people do when they're first starting out in astronomy is they like to look pretty much straight up. And now, I don't like to do that because it's easy to turn and get lost. However, let's say you do that. And let's say you go out after sunset. And sunset's about 8:30. So let's go about 9:30. You should be able to see the constellation Bootes right up above you. That's the shepherd, the kite, the ice cream cone, whatever your reference point is. And one of the easy ways to find that is to find the Big Dipper up here and follow the arc of the handle, follow that arc to Arcturus. And Arcturus is the brightest star in Bootes. Now, if you wait another 2 hours or so until about midnight, that's when you're going to see Hercules up here, which has the nice Hercules cluster within it, one of the great globular clusters in the sky. And then if you wait until early morning, you'll start seeing Lyra, Cygnus, and even Lacerda in there. Where did Lacerda go? There it is, up there. You'll be able to see them above you. And that's good because those are the summer constellations. They're starting to rise up now, starting to be seen in the morning, and that means summer's on its way. But let's draw back from looking straight up, and let's look north, and let's look a little bit after sunset. Let's go to 10 p.m. again, and let's find some spring constellations. So, like I said before, if you can find the Big Dipper, you can find, by following the arc of the handle to Arcturus, you can find Bootes. Now, also around in that area are some other spring constellations. Now, if you find the Big Dipper, follow the arc to Arcturus, you can then speed on to Spica, which is the brightest star in Virgo. Virgo, I think, is a great constellation. It's dim, so you really get a reward when you find it. And yeah, so follow the arc to Arcturus and speed on to Spica. But now we can also go back to Bootes, Bootes, however you actually say it. And to the left of that is Corona Borealis. Now, this line doesn't do it justice. I include this star, and this star. So it's really a nice U shape or cup shape in the sky. Really, really beautiful. Really nice small constellation that's fun to find. Also, next to that, you'll find the Hercules cluster, or sorry, the Hercules constellation. I usually just pay attention to the keystone here. All the arms and legs are sort of, I don't know, I can never really follow them. But you can see Hercules there. And if you have binoculars or a telescope, I highly recommend looking at M13, the Hercules cluster. It's just neat to see a whole cluster of stars in one spot. Lastly, Leo the Lion. Let me find him over here. And so if you can find the Big Dipper up here, you'll be able to take these two stars, these two stars over here in the middle, and follow them and find Regulus, the brightest star in Leo. And then you can look at Leo with its backward question mark and right triangle. So anyway, I'm about 15 minutes in. It's longer than I like to go. So I say get out there, get a sky map from skymaps.com, and go ahead and see if you can get that telescope out and see Mars and Jupiter and Saturn all in one night. Should be a good time to do that. So I'd like to wish you very clear, dark skies for the month of June.